Get ready for news from SonicWall, Bitdefender, and Tech Data, as well as a mini birthday party for Windows 10 with guest host Michael Cocanower from itSynergy, plus a special guest interview with HP CCO Christoph Schell on their new partner program and more. It's ChannelPro Weekly, episode 155, Bleached Outsourced SOCs. Hello and welcome to ChannelPro Weekly, episode 155. My name is Matt Whitlock, technology editor, online director, and your host of this fine program for you. And who are you? I will tell you who you are, and you don't even have to look in your wallet for an ID to figure that out. You are the VARs, you are the MSPs, you are the IT integrators, the IT consultants, the security advisors. Your name might be Bob. That's not what I meant when I was telling you who you are. Like, you should know your name, but your profession is all about IT and working with IT with other businesses. So if you do that, you are in the right place. Someone else who's in the right place, who happens to be in the right place each and every week, my awesome guest host, and of course the executive editor here at ChannelPro, the one who writes all that content and keeps the trains moving and all of that good stuff, and tends to be in a high-rise studio somewhere in, where is that, Dublin? Rich, where are you? Executive editor Rich Freeman, everyone.
Yeah, I'm somewhere in cyberspace, actually, sitting in front of a green screen and in front of a virtual background that looks like a pretty sleek office.
That is a big, I would say that's not in your actual home, because that's a very large space for a typical Seattle apartment.
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah. And for a Seattle apartment, you probably wouldn't need seating for 10 people or whatever we've got in this backdrop here. So, yeah.
Maybe you just host big parties. I don't know. Do you have like ravers in there?
Yeah, well, it looks a lot of computer terminals back there. Maybe we come and we do group gaming.
Yeah, Rich, you do group gaming, huh? What game do you play, Rich? I'm dying to know.
We all play solitaire.
Mad parties of Minesweeper going on there in the Rich Freeman raver party gaming place. Who was cackling there? Well, we have a guest with us today. I'm very, very excited to have a guest host. Michael Cocanower is his name. Founded itSynergy in 1997 and has since turned it into a highly successful MSP. He holds a certified ethical hacker certification, has received numerous awards and widespread industry recognition, including being named one of the 2016 ChannelPro Network 2020 Visionaries. He's also a black belt in the Kung Sul division of the Korean martial art Hwa Rang Do, meaning I'm going to try extra hard to stay on his good side. Please welcome President and CEO of itSynergy, Michael Cocanower.
Greetings, how are you? Thanks very much. Nice to be here.
It is great to have you on, a first-time guest hoster, as we've talked about. So please, let's start off by, if you can, tell us a little bit about you, your background, what you do, and a little bit about itSynergy.
Yeah, I started the company back in 1997. When I originally started the company, we were primarily focused on software development for the residential construction industry, which is like a super highly specialized, focused area. And we pursued that for a while, and then the NASDAQ crashed in the early 2000s, and one of the first things people pulled the plug on was software development projects. So kind of overnight, we had to kind of switch around and refocused on more of the network infrastructure stuff, which is where we've been since the early 2000s, and still going today. And I would say the business has kind of evolved over time. Like you mentioned, we definitely are a lot more focused on security these days, a lot more focused on compliance, and very specifically, we are focused on compliance for registered investment advisors. Is kind of where the majority of our focus is today.
So I am dying to ask a little bit about your martial arts background, because that's fascinating stuff. So how long have you been doing that?
So I probably started that, 10-ish years ago, somewhere between 10 and 15 years ago. And I'll share an interesting fact about that. So probably my favorite part about martial arts training, like it's all cool, but probably my favorite part about it was the sparring. I mean, I really like just kind of the science of combat with another person. And I will share with you that my nickname in the sparring ring was the Headhunter, because I felt that it was my duty to teach people a lesson that I would punch them in the head, and if they didn't raise their hands to block, I would just repeatedly continue to batter them in the head until they got the message that they needed to defend themselves.
That's awesome. So I a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, in fact, I did also some martial arts competitive martial arts for quite a while when I was much younger. But you know, you don't hear Hwarang Do. Is that what it was? Hwarang?
Yeah, Hwarang
Yeah,
Do.
you don't hear that as a common martial art. How did you fall into that one?
You know what? Actually, another channel partner, as a matter of fact, was the guy who turned me on to it originally. Leif Wildenberg from MyTech out of Minnesota was into it. He got into it before I did. Both he and Nate Austin from MyTech both do Hwarang Do, and so that's how I kind of originally got exposed to it. And then when I decided I wanted to pursue martial arts, I researched a bunch of different ones and actually went and took classes from a bunch of different arts, that kind of thing. And that's the one ultimately that I settled on. What's interesting about that art is it's definitely not a competitive art. It's not something like a Taekwondo where you're scoring points. I mean, the different tactics and techniques in Hwarang Do are really meant to leave a person not only so that they cease their attack against you, but so that they literally don't have the skeletal structure left to be able to defend themselves any further.
Well, that sounds painful.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, Michael, you're based in Phoenix, right?
We are. Where, by the way, it's going to be like 117 degrees today or something like that.
I was just going to ask, and I was going to come in at like 100 and figure that's hot, but yeah.
No, 100, my gosh, I'd be wearing my sweater if it was only going to be 100 today.
So we haven't actually spoken in a little while. What's it been like this year for you guys?
You know, it's been very interesting. So as I sit like in peer groups and that type of thing. So if we go back a quarter, what was interesting is the folks from the East Coast. So, you know, New Jersey, New York, those types of markets were, you know, like everything was COVID. And it hadn't really been much of a factor in Arizona at that point. And I'm now going into my next peer group meeting the beginning of next week, and now I think it's flipped exactly the opposite. Like I feel like the wave has kind of passed in that Northeast, New York, New Jersey type market. I don't know. I'll hear from them next week. And now, you know, obviously you hear Arizona all the time is one of the hot spots in the nation, and so it's been a very interesting trend to kind of watch that happen.
Now, you mentioned you're into network infrastructure. So I don't know where the balance is in your business between managed services or recurring revenue business and maybe infrastructure project kind of work. Have you seen a shift in where the deals are coming from and where the revenue is coming from?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say that is probably the only, and I should find some wood to knock on, but that's probably the only real negative impact we've seen, or the only change in the market that we've seen so far. I mean, certainly we've had some customers that have scaled back, asked us for discounts, that type of thing, but not an overwhelming percentage. But the one area where we have seen the hit is in project work. You know, like specifically, we had a project that was literally queued up in March to work with a local municipality on some email work. Well, the email servers that we were going to be working on were the email servers that were used by the police department in this municipality. So they kind of said, don't touch. And so that project got put on hold for several months. It's now picked back up again, but it's really the project work where, you know, if there is a drop that we've seen, that's where we've seen it is on the project side.
And I mean, in that particular instance, there was, you know, sort of an operational issue that got in the way. I mean, to what extent do you think a sort of hesitancy to spend money or you know, a concern about capital outlays is maybe becoming a problem?
Yeah, honestly, we haven't seen a ton of that. So I would agree with you. Well, you know, I don't even know that I can say that. I mean, a lot of the companies that we're working with are still, so you have this issue of you know, we had, and I know we're going to talk about, you know, Windows 7, Windows 10 in a bit. You've also got Server 2008 that goes along with that. And so we already had this wave of, you know, customers moving away from those products, migrating to 10, migrating to something beyond Server 2008, et cetera. And so even though there is a pandemic, you know, unless the business has been significantly impacted, a lot of those customers are continuing to move forward with those things anyway. And so we haven't seen a tremendous slowdown in people purchasing new equipment, new servers, new workstations, you know, that type of thing. And then also, it's obviously very industry dependent as well. So for example, we have a couple of public utilities, you know, their funding's not really impacted much. I mean, people are still paying their water bills, that type of thing. And so again, I need to find some wood to knock on, but so far we've been fortunate in that respect.
That's great. You know, later in the show, we're going to talk to Christoph Schell, the Chief Commercial Officer from HP. I mean, I'm curious, what kinds of interactions have you had with your top vendors in recent months? I mean, are there kinds of assistance or recommendations, advice, whatever that you've been asking them for? Have they been proactive in approaching you about various things? How have your vendor relationships changed recently?
Yeah, I would say a couple of things. So first of all, and I'm sure Christoph will talk about this. I mean, the supply chain has definitely been a challenge, especially in the hardware space. So obviously, we work with a wide variety of different vendors, but with the hardware vendors specifically, supply chain is huge. So it's been very difficult, especially those things that enable remote work scenarios. So laptops, webcams, all those types of things have been very, very difficult to get, if you can even get them at all. So like at the beginning of the pandemic, we were oftentimes seeing like 30 to 45 day lead times on like business grade laptops, that type of thing. So that has certainly been a challenge. And I think the vendors are doing what they can to try to keep us kind of up to date with where they're at with that. But at the end of the day, they can't just wave their magic wand and say, okay, well, I'm going to shorten that lead time from 45 days down to what you would normally see. I mean, it is what it is. So there's not a lot that you can do with that. In terms of some of the other vendors that are more software-based or aren't as dependent on those supply chains, for the most part, I would say a lot of that has been, kind of business as usual. I think that a lot of the products that our customers buy from those vendors, whether they're security-focused products or more utility-type products, like say, the Microsoft 365s of the world and that type of thing, most of our customers have not gotten to the point yet where they've maybe they're trying to cut back and hold expenses and that type of thing, but those are considered more critical, and so they haven't really gotten to the point where they're starting to say, hey, let's back off on some of the security products that we have in place or those types of things, and so not a lot of impact there.
Yeah, cool. So what ways has the pandemic maybe impacted your business specifically, as you work with partners?
Well, so certainly there's been a direct revenue impact, right? So we have some customers, and obviously, oftentimes when there's a revenue impact from us from customers, that will flow through to partners as well. So there has been the direct revenue impact with some customers that are in more affected industries or whatever else that have cut back with us, and then we in turn will cut back with our partners. I mean, that's kind of it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. I mean, so many of these partners have been great about setting us up with relationships with them where the amount that I'm paying with them varies, and can go back and forth month to month, so that I can kind of linearly increase as I add an additional customer. I can just slightly increase my spend with that partner to accommodate that additional customer. But the double-edged side of that is it moves the other way as well. So as I have customers cut back, that can obviously, I cut back with my partners, and that can impact revenue there as well. So that's certainly been the case. But as I mentioned, for the most part, a lot of what we sell, because of the fact that we're focused more on core infrastructure and not so much in more what would be considered optional, like the app dev stuff that we were talking about earlier, or that type of thing. A lot of customers, like, nobody's going to cut off their email, or nobody's going to say like, we don't really need that security stuff anymore, let's get rid of some of those products. I mean, that's just not happening.
And if one of your clients does not pay their bill, do you kick them in the head?
Yeah, that is definitely a possibility.
Or do you at least make sure they put their fists up?
Yes, they've got to defend themselves. That's right.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here and for being a guest host with us today. It's a longer show, but I think you'll find it enjoyable, and we'll cover a lot of ground, lots of interesting, cool stuff to talk about. So we're going to go ahead and shift gears here and get to the news. But Rich, I think you wanted to make a mention of the upcoming Cybersecurity Summit. Ooh, what is that, Rich? Tell me.
Well, the reason I am sitting in this virtual office here is because I've been doing lots of recording for our Cybersecurity Summit, which is taking place next week as we record this, August 5th. If you are interested to learn more about it, before I forget, you want to go to events.channelpronetwork.com, because there's still time to register. But it is a day-long virtual event, 100% dedicated to opportunities in cybersecurity. We're going to be talking about work from home related security. We're going to be talking about managed security. and in depth, because there is a sort of light definition of what it means to provide managed security. But we're going to be talking with a panel of MSPs who have really kind of specialized in that, and we'll be telling you what that means to be in managed security. We've got an IoT security session, a compliance related session. If I had known you were into that, Michael, we would have recruited you to be on that panel. I'll keep that in mind for the future. So all sorts of really great content. And you know, it's a virtual event, so we cannot possibly sell out, folks. If you are interested in attending, there's plenty of time to sign up and join us, and it's totally free.
Totally free. Go and sign up. It's also important to note too that unlike a lot of virtual events out there, a vast majority of the content that you'll see is actually broadcast live to our virtual stage, so you can even interact and ask questions and talk to the panelists in an interactive way, just like if it was a in-person event. Plus lots of other cool features in this event platform that we use, where you can, you know, talk to vendors, and you can talk to each other and turn webcams on and have actual live discussions. It's really cool, isn't it, Rich?
It's very cool. Very. It's a and you know, Matt, you're responsible for a lot of that. We have a great sort of online platform and experience that we've been delivering to our audience.
It's a lot of fun. So definitely plan on being there. Events.channelpronetwork.com. All right, we're going to switch to the news. SonicWall is in the news this week. They've charted the COVID-19's impact on the security landscape. And when we talk about landscaping, we're not talking about like the impact on your front yard with the trees and the flowers, but actual some other kind of landscape, right?
They're thinking bigger than that. Yeah, they're thinking beyond the front or even the backyard at SonicWall.
Which is too bad, because I needed some more mulch put in, and I was hoping that they could do that.
Yeah, well, you know, give them a shout. You never know. If you don't ask, you never know. So they recently, SonicWall recently published a cyber threat study. This is something that they do all the time. The recent one that came out covers the first half of 2020, which obviously has been a very different and very interesting time. So it was good to get some data from them that they've been seeing, you know, based on the telemetry that they collect from their firewalls and other security tools. So just some of the things that they've been noticing that may or may not resonate with folks out in the audience. First of all, this was a little surprising. You know, we're all aware that the threat landscape has actually gotten more serious. You know, there are more attacks going on. There are people more vulnerable because they're working from home and aren't behind corporate firewalls and so on. There's actually been a decline in malware in the first half of the year, 32% down just in terms of the attack volume. Now that sounds good, but you have to kind of balance that against some other things that they've mentioned in this report. So first of all, it's a little bit harder for SonicWall to measure malware volumes when people are working from home and the SonicWall firewalls maybe aren't actually seeing some of the attacks that are going on. Second of all, ransomware is way up. And I'll grab that number, but I want to say it's up 20% globally. How about this? Ransomware attacks in the first half of the year, up 20% year over year worldwide, up 109% specifically here in the US. So
it's a lot of percents, Rich.
What's that?
That's a lot of percents.
That's, you know, you're into the triple digits there. It's a remarkable number, actually. And the attacks are getting more targeted too. I mean, there's still a lot of you know, wide-scale, generalized attacks, but the ransomware attackers are getting a little bit more targeted. They're going after bigger companies like hospitals, for example, that are overwhelmed with patient loads right now, cannot afford to be down, lose their data. So, you know, vulnerable victims, and as the folks at SonicWall pointed out, you know, there was you typically, when you hear about ransomware, you expect the ransom to be in the zone of a few $1,000s, but the University of California, San Francisco was ransomed for $1.14 million recently. So the targets are getting a little bit narrower, they're getting bigger, and the ransoms as a result that are getting paid out are getting bigger. IoT attacks are way up, 50% in the first half of this year versus the first half of last year. And I had an opportunity to speak with Bill Connor, who's the CEO of SonicWall, about all this data. And my question to him was, is that part of the work from home phenomenon. Is IoT or are IoT security threats or attacks way up like that because people are at home and they're on less secured networks and they've got a Nest thermostat or a Ring doorbell, et cetera? And he said, no, actually, they haven't seen that kind of threat activity go up yet, but they're waiting for it. Basically, he said, stay tuned. His prediction is in the second half of the year, you're going to start seeing a lot more of those kinds of home-based IoT attacks by people who know, attackers who understand, if I can get through an IoT device onto a home piece of technology, I can probably work my way from that home PC onto the corporate network and figure out what kind of targets I can find there. So a 50% increase in IoT attacks in the first half of the year, and that's sort of the tip of the iceberg, apparently, to what might be coming up later on. And then last but not least, they're seeing a significant increase in attacks on what they're calling non-standard ports. So we're all kind of familiar with, port 25, which handles your SMTP traffic, port 80, which is doing the HTTP stuff. There are 40,000 registered ports in the network architecture, most of which most security software, most firewalls are really kind of ignoring because nobody goes after them very much. And as a result, there are some vulnerabilities there. And in the first quarter of this year, 22% of the malware attacks that SonicWall tracked went after those non-standard ports. So that has become a more serious risk factor that that folks in our audience have to be paying more attention to.
Very interesting. Michael, your take on some of this data and some of the attack vectors.
Ton of comments. So I'm going to kind of go in reverse order. So the first thing I would say, Rich, you talked about the non-standard ports. I mean, Matt, you mentioned at the outside of this that one of the things I am as a certified ethical hacker. And from that perspective, I can tell you that giving me an open port is like a gift to me as a hacker, and I don't really care what the port number is. So yeah, you're right, Rich. I mean, a lot of people often focus on, the more common ones, the 80, the 443, the 25, et cetera. But to me, a port is a port. I don't care. And if you're giving me an open port, I'm going to say thank you and take that and see what I can do with it. So very interesting. Going back to the ransomware, a little bit of a personal story with that. In addition to the martial arts, I'm also a runner. And so I use a Garmin GPS watch to track all of my running activity. Garmin was hit by a very widely publicized ransomware attack this week, and and it was last week actually, and still going into this week. And so for a number of days, you guys, I'm sure, are going to have a lot of sympathy. I could not synchronize my run data with the cloud. And so, my friends don't know how far I'm running and how fast I'm going. And I mean, it was just awful. But what was interesting to me is, so I mean, I joke about that, but in addition, there are also a lot of pilots that rely on the Garmin cloud services and being able to synchronize that and download flight plans and that kind of thing. And some of these things are FAA requirements. And so I think the interesting question that comes out of that is, I read a report at one point, and by the way, like, this took down all of Garmin's systems. Even took down their call center, so they weren't able to take inbound calls and all this type of thing. And the article that I read said that the malicious actors were asking for $10 million in ransom. So that's 10x what you talked about, Rich. That's a very high number. But I think it raises an interesting question. I mean, I just looked at it while we were talking here. In the 12 months ended March 31 of 2020, Garmin did $3.85 billion in revenue. And so at $3.85 billion in revenue, $10 million ransom, that's a very high ransom. But the question is, what duty do they owe to their customers? If you're a pilot and you're relying on this data, or you're me and you want your friends to know how far you're running every morning, what duty does Garmin owe to me? And am I okay with the fact that I go a week without being able to fly or without having this data on there? And again, if you're going to ransom me for 10 million, forget it. I'm out of business. But if you're a $3.85 billion company, I don't know about the $10 million. So that's pretty interesting. And then the one other thing I want to add too, which I find very interesting with SonicWall, just talking generally about malicious activity and the impact that COVID has had on it, is we work with healthcare customers, and obviously a lot of what we do is like phishing testing, where we're sending simulated phishing emails and that type of thing. And So we've been leveraging COVID in doing that testing and sending people, COVID related messages to try to get them to click a link or open an attachment or whatever else. And the feedback that we get from our customers is like, oh, you got me. You're so sneaky using COVID. And it's just like, do you think the bad guys haven't thought of that? I mean, do you think I'm the only one coming up with an idea to use COVID to try to get you? And so definitely, something to be aware of, that like, the bad guys are reading or watching the news too, and reading the newspapers as well.
It's one of the things that you brought up that I think is really important to note is that one of the reasons why the ransomware has been so successful is just for the reason that you stated. It is that the ransoms are very targeted towards being to the point of reasonableness for the business to just pay it outright. As you said, $10 million is a lot of money. Not if the company's at $3 billion a year.
Right.
Right. But when they go after those small businesses, it's not like they're not targeting the small ones too. They're just making the ransom within the realm of possibility for them to pay and not go under.
Right. Exactly.
And that's why everyone pays the ransom. And that's why we still have lots of ransoms, which is not good.
Lots of bad guys. Yes.
And you know what? A $10 million payout really does sort of underscore why ransomware is getting more targeted. It's like, how many successful $6,000 attacks do you have to do to collect, to get up to that same $10 million? If you can find yourself one big fish, you can understand why that more of that kind of thing is happening.
For sure.
You can get a big fish, although I would still say that, if you can craft one attack that's targeted to small businesses of a certain size, you could still make quite a lucrative amount of money going after those.
Right? $25,000 a day is not a bad living.
Right, that's so true. It's so true. Any other anything else in here, Michael, that stood out to you that you wanted to comment on?
No, I think those were the big things that I wanted to touch on that I found interesting in the report.
Yeah, and there's some other stuff in here too. And for those who are listening, every episode we put a show page up on channelpronetwork.com. So go find the one for episode 155, where you'll see links to all of these news stories that we're going to be talking about throughout the day. So you can go and read and get all of the details. And if you're watching on YouTube, open up the description area and we'll put the links in there for you as well as other information, like information about how to get a hold of Mr. Michael here and other things like that might crop in throughout the show. So we're going to move on to our next news story, which is about Bitdefender. They've introduced a managed detection and response service. Rich, tell us about that.
So Bitdefender, I'm sure most of the folks in the audience here are familiar with them, and a big name, obviously, in the security market, well known for their security software. They now have a security service as well that goes along with that software. So this is an add-on, an optional add-on for their Gravity Zone product principally, although if you sign on to the MDR service, you not only get the Ultra edition of Gravity Zone, which includes endpoint detection and response functionality, you also get their network traffic security analytics solution and a few other access to a few other products. But the significant add-on is that you're also getting services on the back end via a security operations center in San Antonio, Texas, from Bitdefender. And this is it's sort of a continuing trend that we're seeing in the security world right now, where it's certainly nothing new for outsourced SOCs to be available to channel pros, and there are plenty of companies out there that offer that. But it seems like more and more recently, companies that are known first and foremost for their software are beginning to have these kind of service offerings as well. Sophos did it late last year, for example.
Right. But Rich, in the today's modern era with the COVID, you don't want to use outsourced SOCs. They're usually dirty and not hygienic, and they might give you a fungus or COVID.
So laundered outsourced SOCs is, I guess, the what we're looking for.
You can't pass up a good socks joke, Rich. You know it.
No, and it's a good point, because typically you would launder your sock with bleach, and bleach is an effective disinfectant. So
So if you're going to outsource socks, wash them first.
Plenty of bleach.
Okay. Good advice. Michael, do you agree with that advice?
Absolutely, 100%.
So there, on the Bitdefender service, there are two tiers there, because there are a lot of different levels of need with something like this. There are certainly a lot of channel pros out there who really don't have any kind of managed security capability of their own right now, and are really looking to kind of outsource the actual incident response and alert management and so on to somebody else. There is a tier in the program called Expert Response, where you can do that. They will, and it's all sort of prearranged. You have to kind of tell them in advance what you authorize them to do directly with your end users. But with your permission, they can actually go in and remediate issues that they identify through their SOC. If you have your own SOC, or you just feel like you are in a position to do the mitigation and the incident response yourself, there's another tier called Expert Advice. They will let you know when they spot a problem. They'll give you recommendations on how to deal with that problem, but they'll let you handle the interaction directly with the customer. So, interesting service, obviously, especially if you are a Bitdefender partner, but again, also just kind of an interesting latest development in this trend of software makers becoming service providers as well to partners who need some degree of Bleach outsourced assistance.
True. So this seems like it would be a welcome service, particularly for smaller MSPs who may not have a lot of security expertise, because as you said, there's a tier where they can actually just remediate the issue for you, right?
Yeah. At the expert response tier, basically, they're doing the incident response. So yeah, I totally agree. Actually, there are a lot of channel pros out there right now who want to get into managed security. And where do you begin? How do you do that? To create your own SOC is enormously expensive. To hire a security analyst is enormously expensive as well. So you're going to be looking for some outsourced kind of offering. And again, there are companies that really do nothing but that, plenty of them out there. And now you have the additional option as you're shopping around to do it with a software vendor you may or may not have an existing relationship with.
Yeah, right. Get it right through the software vendor. Interesting. Michael, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, what's interesting is, and I don't know if this is as prevalent in other industries as it is in IT, but I think so many people like me who own IT consulting companies, managed services companies, VARs, et cetera, came from a technical background. That seems to be super widespread, that the guy at the top started as just an engineer and then kind of built a company and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think as a result of that characteristic, we are very prone to squirrels. So like, oh, here's something new I'm going to go do. Here's a new technology. I'm going to go pursue that. And, security is a great example. Like, oh, I'm going to go build a SOC and I'm going to become a security expert and whatever else. And my observation, working with so I'm in a peer group with Chris Lear, who does incident response. And I've also been involved with customers where, excuse me, their insurance company has brought in an incident response firm to help recover from some type of an incident. And my observation from that is that skill set is so completely, entirely different from what we do all day, every day. And to me, unless you have a pretty good scale, it's just so difficult, as Rich says, to try, and expensive, to try to build that out internally. And so I love the idea of the offering, but then B, I like the dual where, they'll do it for you, or they'll tell you, here's what you need to go and do. And you can kind of choose which of those two flavors that you want. So for me, I think we need to be so careful about getting distracted by these squirrels and going and saying, oh, I'm going to go do this now. Much more efficient to bring it in and outsource it to an expert.
So what would you say is, are there any downsides to using a service like this to remediate issues with your
Yeah, I mean,
clients?
not specific to this service, but anytime you outsource anything, there's always a loss of control, and there's risk involved in that. And so certainly, there are a number of portions of our service offering that we outsource today, and certainly that can cause frustration where the outsource firm is not doing things the way you want it done, or in the order you want it done, or with the priority you want it done, or whatever else. I mean, there's always potential risk and frustration in outsourcing. But really, it goes back to the partnership that you have with the company that you're outsourcing it to, and how are those lines of communication? Are you talking and working through those things, and are you improving over time? And if you are, then you've probably made the right choice and selected the right partner.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Rich, any other comments or questions on this particular one?
Well, I guess just one last observation, which is that, this is a further reflection of what's been an ongoing push by Bitdefender into the MSP market. So, I mean, they've been doing business with MSPs for a while. They've certainly been very serious about the MSP market for at least the last couple of years or so. But they've been getting more serious about it during that 2-year period or so. And about just over a year ago, they launched an entirely new MSP partner program. They've been creating subscription-priced versions of all their different software products to make all of that as MSP friendly as possible. And this service, while obviously it could be used by anyone, it's very much targeted at that MSP market. So like a lot of vendors, not just in security, they recognize the degree to which end users are really looking to pay for everything as a service these days. They recognize that the managed services market, which has been around for a long time now, is still on a growth arc and is going to be expanding for a long time. They want to get in on that too, and this is the latest way that they've been kind of shifting things to make sure that they have a good set of offerings for our MSP partners.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Oh, one thing that I wanted to ask though, didn't say anything about the subscription costs. Is this an expensive service to use? I imagine outsourcing remediation is a time-intensive thing for the one providing the service. So, what does it cost?
I don't have they didn't give me the specific numbers, but basically they are charging for this the way they charge for anything else, MSP specific, anything subscription price that they have. And it's all I know that it's a usage-based pricing model. So I assume the more devices you're managing or they're managing for you, the higher the cost. But they didn't quote me specific rates.
Okay, well, something to look into. I'm sure if people are interested, and we'll put there was a little bit more in the story that we didn't get to, so we'll just put the link up to you to go check that out. It'll be on the show notes page at channelpronetwork.com for episode 155. Rich, our last news story is about Tech Data. Tech Data is, well, somebody's got a word on their mind, and that word is absquatulate. No, that's not what the word was. Acceleration. Sorry, Rich. What is the Tech Data president driving a very fast race car? Is that what's going on here?
Close, kind of, maybe a little.
Or no.
Or yeah, or maybe not so close, but the acceleration is involved very much in this story. So, we are talking here about the new America's president of Tech Data. So Tech Data partners out there have known, Joe Quaglia for a long time. He was the America's president over there. He has retired very recently, and his replacement is named John O'Shea. And I had an opportunity to speak with him for the first time just last week, actually, I believe, and catch up with him. He is brand new in the job, so obviously he's still very much working on exactly what he's going to prioritize and kind of work on first. And he said, in fact, that his first 30 days on the job are going to be entirely about talking to partners, listening to partners. And then he'll start, he'll spend the next 30 days kind of turning that into a plan of action. But the one thing that he, was very comfortable kind of pointing out is that he wasn't brought into this job to make significant, radical changes, and he's not planning to make radical changes. The word he said that keeps coming to mind for him as he thinks about the number one thing that he wants to accomplish in this role is acceleration. So Tech Data has been on a course for a number of years here where they are shifting out of the old school distribution model into more of a solution-oriented model. And in fact, they don't really like to be called a distributor anymore. They view themselves as a solutions aggregator, which means that they have relationships with lots of different vendors and service providers, and they can kind of help you pull together all the different pieces that you need to assemble a solution that's going to address a customer requirement. They're focused on, core markets, cloud and security and IoT. None of that changes. His aspiration is to just help Tech Data and help Tech Data partners make that transition, that transformation faster. So acceleration is really what he has in mind. And the interesting thing about O'Shea that I'll call attention to is he's kind of ideally situated for exactly that kind of a role. So he's not at all a newcomer to Tech Data. He spent most of his professional life at Tech Data. So, I mean, all told, on the order, I think, of 20-ish years he's been at the company. So he knows Tech Data well, he knows distribution well. But there was a period of about 4 years there where he left the company, and this is relatively recently, 2012 to 2016. And he was working at a company called Vology, a solution provider. And he started out in a very senior sales role. He became the president of the company. And in that role, he was basically helping Vology make the transition from an older school VAR kind of model to more of a solution provider kind of a model. So he has experienced that from the partner point of view, and can now bring that experience with him back to Tech Data. So interesting there. I'm sure it's no accident that this is why he's in the position that he's in now. And presumably that sets him up to understand and empathize a little bit more with what Tech Data partners need as they make that same transition that he once led.
Well, it'll be fun to watch. I liked Joe quite a bit. He was a very nice person. So good luck to Joe in his retirement. So Michael, I'm going to turn to you as a partner. Are you a Tech Data partner?
We are.
So anytime there's change in management, especially at the top, it can be a little nerve-wracking. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, our business with Tech Data is very transactional in nature. So I'm not as concerned about a change at the top, especially because he said he's not really looking to impact, some kind of a massive restructuring or anything like that. The one thing that I would say though, in response, so if his word is accelerate, my word back is execution. And to me, that's really the key to making that transition that he's talking about from being, kind of the distributor, the traditional highly transactional type model, to more of the solution aggregator that we're talking about. Because for me, in order to work with a solution aggregator like that, because a lot of the solutions that they're aggregating, I could go to a vendor and purchase directly, right? So, whether it's like an antivirus solution like a Bitdefender we talked about earlier, whether it's a staffing solution or whatever, like I can go and transact those things directly. And so in order for me to do that through him, there's one of two things that has to happen. Either A, he has to have a way to make that transaction more frictionless for me if I go through him than if I go directly to the vendor. And so maybe that could be like he's written some kind of a tool that integrates it with my PSA or my RMM or something along those lines. So I'm eliminating friction by transacting through him rather than transacting directly. Or B, he's got to add enough value to the equation that I say, okay, well, it's worth me going through and transacting this way rather than transacting with the vendor. So in that value equation, the thing that I think about is like staffing. And so one of the things we have is a lot of our customers, although most of them are headquartered in Phoenix, we have a lot of branch offices throughout the United States and even some that are international as well. And occasionally we need hands-on. We need somebody to swap out a switch or plug in a firewall or something along those lines. And so we'll we'll use a staffing company to send a pair of remote hands, and then we'll work with them over the phone to do whatever it is. And so for example, if I'm going to start doing those transactions through Tech Data rather than working directly with the vendor that we work with today, he's got to be able to add some value to that transaction. And whether that value comes from, hey, I'm going to send you more qualified people, or I'm going to do a better job of resolving issues when they come up, and the guy shows up, wearing a stained, t-shirt and smoking a cigarette and, all that other kind of stuff. So somehow he's got to figure out how to make my experience transacting through him better than it is going directly. And so that would be my reaction is accelerate sounds good. Execution is going to be the way to get there.
And, an interesting follow-on to that, because you were talking about how tools, online platforms, for example, could potentially be a significant value add there. And, it's a big deal for Tech Data that they have a new Americas president, but the really big change at Tech Data recently is that they are now owned by Apollo Global Management, this giant equity investor. And one of the things that Apollo announced when that transaction officially closed is that they're going to be investing $750 million in tech data, and specifically they're going to be putting a lot of that money into systems, into tools. And you know, John O'Shea, Apollo, when they announced this deal was finished, focused on Stream One, which is the online cloud marketplace that Tech Data operates, but there are others as well. And so I think it'll be interesting to see over what time frame that plays out and what kinds of tools we're talking about, or are we talking about more functionality in existing tools? But it sounds like they've really decided to place a big bet on digital transformation, electronic kinds of resources that can connect them more closely with their partners and help their partners be more efficient.
Yeah, and from my standpoint, I wish them all the luck in the world, because it's amazing to me with this patchwork of vendors and solutions and tools that we work with, how much time and energy and resources we put into trying to integrate these things so that, you know, they talk to each other and it's automatic and things update and billing and all that other kind of stuff. And so you know, the more that he can solve that problem for me, the more that I'm going to start to push those dollars through him. So I really hope that they do it and they get it right.
Very interesting, Rich. Now we're gonna go into conspiracy theory land here for a second, Rich. Is it coincidental that Tech Data is purchased by a big private equity firm and the president retires right around the same time? You think that's a coincidence?
I do, and now I'll tell you the truth. It very much occurred to me. Boy, you look at that timing and you think part of why I figure that this really was in the cards is that John O'Shea. It looks to me, and this is not something anyone at Tech Data has told me, but I mean, John has known Joe Quaglia for a long time. To my eyes, he looks like the hand-picked successor. He looks like the successor that Joe Quaglia wanted in that job. Could be wrong about that. That's a little bit speculative, but that kind of hints to me that, yeah, this was something that was coming anyway.
Interesting. We'll see. I'm sure if it was not coincidental, I'm sure there will be a book about it at some point down the road that we can all buy. So. All right. Well, interesting stuff. We'll have to watch what the new president of Tech Data does and how they accelerate. Michael, when you go to accelerate, what do you use to accelerate? What's your favorite form of acceleration?
My favorite form of acceleration, I think we talked about a little bit earlier, is probably my running shoes.
Excellent. Now, how many? And if you run a lot, how many pairs of running shoes do you go through a year?
A year? I generally get a new pair of shoes roughly every 3 months, so about 4 pairs a year.
That's pretty good for someone who runs every day. They must be pretty nice shoes. Sorry, we're diving into 5 questions land here a little early, I think. So why don't we move on? But that is it with the news. But we've got a couple other stories we want to talk about. And it's a birthday party. All right, we're going to sing happy birthday. Everybody ready? 1, 2, 3. You don't
want that to happen.
You thought I was going to sing. Everybody thought I was going to do it. I promise you. But no, Windows 10 is turning, 5 years old? This as of yesterday, Rich.
Yeah, and you know what? So first of all, thank you to the folks at SolarWinds. I got a note from the PR folks at SolarWinds a few days ago, pointing out that July 29th, which is yesterday, as we record this, is the 5th anniversary of Windows 10 releasing to manufacturing. I was totally unaware of that milestone was coming up. I haven't seen a lot of reporting about it, but Windows 10 has been around for 5 years, and that kind of got me to thinking, what is the market share right now? What does the adoption look like for Windows 10? And so I jumped onto the net market share site, which is maybe not the most authoritative source of data about this kind of thing, but it gives you a good solid snapshot. And what I saw a couple days ago when I looked is that, at all the endpoints that they're collecting data from, 54.76% of them currently are running Windows 10. 27.41% are running Windows 7, which, unless I'm mistaken, is past its EOL date right now. So I just kind of, and in fact, the reason the SolarWinds folks reached out to me about this is not just to kind of note that this birthday is coming up, but also to sort of point out that there are a lot of Windows 7 machines out there. A lot of those are probably being run in work from home environments right now. And so they sent me some thoughts from Tim Brown, who is the VP of security over there. And he points out, the ubiquitous shift, I'm quoting now, the ubiquitous shift to remote working means now more than ever, IT equipment needs to be running the newest or most current software to ensure compatibility with business critical applications hosted locally on equipment or in the cloud. And to ensure security if there was any ambiguity about that. It's interesting to me that we're still in the process of Windows 10 adoption 5 years in. It's a little bit disturbing that there's that much Windows 7 out there right now, and I very much endorse the point that Tim at SolarWinds is making, which is there maybe was less pressure to get those Windows 7 people off of Windows 7 before than there is now, especially to the degree that, personal PCs, home PCs are the ones that are running that operating system right now. Boy, this is a really good time to be getting those out of or off of the endpoints that you as an MSP manage.
Interesting. Now, so you think that a lot of those Windows 7 machines are in home environments. I would argue the opposite of that. Michael, where would you land on that?
Yeah, so I almost feel like the frontline reporter here, like calling in to report from the front lines what we're seeing out there. So what I would say is, first of all, and I hesitate to say this publicly, like I probably shouldn't go on the record saying this, but quite honestly, I look forward to Microsoft and other vendors end of lifing their equipment, because it gives us the ability to go to our customers and not be the bad guy and not be like, well, you got to pay a bunch of money and buy a whole bunch of new workstations because Microsoft said so. I mean, what am I going to do? I got no control over this. And I would never tell my customer that, but I'm actually thankful for that. The challenge with Windows 7 is that Microsoft effectively gave people a pass, because for a relatively low dollar amount, people can buy the extended security updates, and that gives them additional time. I mean, so far they've extended through the end of the year. They've said they're going to offer options for a couple more years beyond that with an increasing level of expense. But a lot of our customers, some of it's just laziness, but also some of it is, I have this piece of manufacturing equipment that has a Windows 7 computer embedded in it, and it's not just an easy thing for me to update to Windows 10, that type of thing. And so it's way easier for them to just say, yeah, sure, I'll spend $60 and extend out to the end of the year and kind of kick the can down the road a little bit. So I think that's part of why we're still seeing so much Windows 7 out there. I would certainly hope that it's Windows 7 with the ESU on top of it, so that it's still being patched from a security standpoint. But I do think it's a great point that SolarWinds has pointed out about, yeah, I'm sure they're right that a lot of this Windows 7 probably is at home, and I am 100% sure that stuff doesn't have the ESU on it, that people aren't buying that for their home PC. So I think that's definitely a valid thing to point out.
And I mean, part of my theory about that, and you can reality check this for us too, is, I looked at that 5-year time frame, and I figured I know that not every business, especially small businesses, don't necessarily refresh their PC every 3 years or whatever, and probably far from it. But the way, as I understand it, the way that a typical SMB steps up to a newer OS is when they're refreshing the hardware. And I was thinking, boy, 5 years, you got to figure a lot of businesses have upgraded those Windows 7 machines by now, but maybe not.
I think you'd be surprised.
I mean, there's a couple of factors going on there. So I agree with you. Like, definitely the SMBs are not refreshing every 5 years, especially when it comes to desktops. But 5 years is where they start to think about it. That's where the warranties will start to run out, that type of thing. But the challenge is you take that normal 5-year upgrade cycle and now you layer COVID on top of it, right? And so, here we are, stuff that was scheduled to be upgraded this year, but everybody's holding on to cash and they're saying, well, can we stretch it another year? That type of thing. So, you've got to consider that impact as well.
So another interesting fact that I want to point out. So Windows 8.1, 3.52% of the market, poor Windows 8. it really didn't get any love, did it? And
It did not.
and another scary one is I see down here at the bottom of this list, Rich, 1.4% of computers, which is still a pretty sizable number of computers are still running Windows XP.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? There are that many Windows XP boxes out. The other thing that struck me, that the report that we're all looking at here breaks out the various flavors of Mac OS X individually, which makes it a little hard to kind of, but I mean, in aggregate, it doesn't look like it adds up even to 10%. And the highest scoring OS X release on the list here is version 10.14, which has 3.58% of share right now versus 3.52 for Windows 8.1. So I don't know. I for some reason or other, I expected those numbers to be a little bit higher.
It seems
I
like
would
Matt,
agree with that as well. I mean, I read those same numbers, and I was actually shocked at how low that is, especially given how vocal the Mac user community is about the ubiquity of their operating system. I was surprised to see that it was that low.
it's, you know what, that goes back, 15 years, 20 years. It seems like the Mac market share is generally around 10%-ish, give or take. And it never seems to grow from that. It just tends to be steady, which is really interesting. But that's a surprising number of XP machines still in existence. So Michael, you hinted. I want to ask two questions. One, you hinted a little bit about the extended service options for Windows 7. Is Windows 7 going to be the next XP where they just kind of keep it alive forever at this point, or are they going to cut it off at the end of the year? What do you think?
Well, so they've already said that they're going to offer the ESU for 3 years, and we're only in year 1. So we know that it's going to be around for at least a couple more years. And is it going to be the next Windows XP? I mean, 7, like XP, had a lot of the same characteristics, that it's considered very stable, had very wide adoption, et cetera, et cetera. So I think you will see a lot of the same trending. I would just point out, though, that much like we talked earlier about these open ports being a gift to me as a hacker, so is Windows XP as well. And so I want to thank all those 1 point whatever percent that are still running XP out there, because that's a gift to the hackers of the world.
It sure is. So my last question, let's talk about Windows 10 just in general. It's been around 5 years now, a little longer if you ran the betas. It feels longer than 5 years because the beta was so very public and open to so many people, because I remember running it well before July 29th of 2015. What do you think? What do you think of Windows 10? The adoption level is good, but it's not great, I guess. What do you think? Where is Windows 10 in your opinion today? What's great about it? What's not great about it?
Well, I think what would be an interesting comparison would be to go back and look at 5 years after Windows 7 came out and see what percentage Windows 7 had at that point versus Windows XP, because this is really the same type of scenario here. My guess, I don't know, my guess is that you'd probably see very similar percentages, because XP obviously held on for a long time. And so my guess is that it would be somewhat similar. And I think we're seeing a very similar trend to Windows 10. And I think, Windows 10 has the characteristics of 7 and XP, that it's widely deployed, it's generally considered to be very stable, et cetera. And so my guess is that that's what we'd see.
Rich, what do you think? What would we see?
I think he's probably. I'm trying. As you were talking about that, I'm trying to remember back, and what was Microsoft kind of talking about at that time. And it's a little hard to remember, but I suspect you're right. Actually, and it's kind of the whole victim of your own success kind of phenomenon, where if it works and it's stable and people aren't complaining about it. It ain't broke, so they don't fix it, and then they just kind of hang on out there. These older OSs.
Yeah, I think I'm sorry, Matt, but the one other thing that I think is interesting as well is it's interesting to see how it plays out, because Microsoft came out with Windows 10 and said, that's it, we're done. There's no Windows 12, there's no Windows 14, there's no Windows PQX, whatever. Like, this is it. And so we kind of got used to this whole, okay, there's Windows XP, and then there's Windows Me or Millennium or whatever, and then And then there's 7, and then there's 8, and then there's 10, and then, you know, we have nothing to hate now after 10 because 10 is it. And so, you know, we don't have this middle release that we all pan and ignore and talk about how horrible it is and then wait for what comes out after that. Like 10 is it. And that's what we got from here on out.
Yeah, it's a very good point. That's a very good point. Rich, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and that's what it may be the reason why this 5th anniversary of Windows 10 didn't get all that much attention, because it doesn't really matter, in a sense, how old this thing is right now. It's just Windows at this point. Yeah, so you know, it probably doesn't make sense to keep track all that carefully of the age. I
wonder if they go as they go forward. I wonder if they're going to drop the 10 moniker then, because if they really hold true to that, Michael, there really is no reason to still call it Windows 10, right? Because there's just Windows at that point.
Yeah, other than the billions of dollars that have been invested in that brand. Yeah, I mean, you know, there's that.
There is always that. Well, interesting stuff. So happy birthday, Windows 10. I hope Microsoft takes you out to dinner and gets you a nice birthday present.
Well, socially distanced with plexiglass in between you and the operating system.
Yes, right. We wouldn't want to catch. Oh, there's a Windows virus joke in there, but it's just too easy. So let's just not bother. But what we are going to bother doing is we are going to take a short break. And when we come back, we've got the Chief Commercial Officer of HP Global, Christoph Schell, is going to be here to join us and talk with us about a couple of things, mostly about their new partner program. So definitely you will want to stick around for that. I'm sure it'll be a great interview, and we will be right back. Hey, and welcome back to part 2 of ChannelPro Weekly. We got a great guest interview lined up for you today. So for over 21 years, our next guest has held senior management roles across the globe. He is a member of HP's executive leadership team, currently accountable for all aspects of sales, go-to-market, and revenue and margin generation on a global scale. This will be the second time he has joined us on the ChannelPro Weekly podcast. So please welcome back Christoph Schell, the Chief Commercial Officer at HP. Welcome, Christoph.
Thank you for having me back.
It's great to have you back joining us today. We got a lot to talk about. We know that since January, it seems like the world is a whole different place. And I know we're going to get to that here in a second. But for those who may have missed that particular episode, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your role at HP and what you do there?
Hey, look, I mean, as you said it, I've been a couple of years now with HP, 22 years actually. Plus, I was not always in senior positions. That has evolved over time. I had a fairly international career with HP. I started in Europe and Germany, and then spent time with HP in the Middle East, in Australia, in Asia, in Singapore, and then in the US. And yeah, since November of last year, my team and I, we are managing all commercial aspects of the company at a global level. We changed a little bit of structure on how we do that. We had at the very get-go, we had 3 regions. For many years of my 22 career in HP, and last year, November, we decided that we will shift from 3 regions to 10 markets. And that's what we've been operating with as a structure now for the past 9 months. So a lot of exciting change within HP. But obviously a lot of work that COVID-19 gave us as well. And so I'm looking forward to talking a little bit about that with you.
Yeah, so on a personal level, tell us about how the virus has impacted you and the area you live in, and things that you're doing personally to cope.
So this is week 20 for me, working from home. And I'm really, that's pretty much what I do. I work from home, and I play from home. I started to play FIFA as a kind of a balance a little bit to do something else. And I'm not very good at it, but it's a lot of fun. My kids moved back in. My oldest son is a college student, so he's online. And my youngest daughter, she actually graduated during this time from high school. That was a bit of a muted graduation, I think. It was not what she had planned for. But I actually hope that both of them in the fall will have an opportunity to go back to their colleges, or for my daughter to actually start college in person. We'll see if that works out or not. And I think even if it's online, I still want them to leave the house and make the experiences living by themselves. But yeah, I think that has been our life has changed a lot. So I'm spending a lot of time on Zoom calls like this one, or team calls. There is a lot. If you look at my job description, I think while the job is the same, how we all work has, I think, had a significant impact and has changed quite dramatically over the last 20 weeks. I've been used to traveling a lot. That has come to a halt. And I've been used to engage a lot with customers in face-to-face meetings. That has stopped. And that's some very interesting learnings about how virtual selling is very different than selling in person.
That it is. And no doubt any student who graduated in 2020, you kind of feel bad for them because they got kind of a raw deal with probably no graduation ceremony. But we can't feel too bad because as they go through life, they will always have a story, right? Like,
I would agree.
That was me. I was the one there, that I was that part of that class. So I think it'll work out for them with some bragging rights in the future. But yeah, hopefully they all get to go back in the fall. So now when we last spoke in January, it was just weeks before the coronavirus became, the year's, defining story and life-changing moment, both globally and here in the United States. How has the pandemic impacted HP and its partners from your perspective?
Look, I think from the get-go, we basically had to look at changes in demand and changes in supply. And I think the changes in demand, a company like HP that does 87% of its revenue through partners, we need to manage that ecosystem. So we very quickly, I think, jumped into gear looking at how can we help our partners? How can we help them on taking work out, simplifying how they engage with us? How can we accelerate programmatic payouts that we owe them in order to help them with the cash flow? What can we do with the payables? Can we give them a break? Can we let them give them a longer period of time to pay us? Can we incent them through cash discount? And so what we did is we looked at all these options and we came up with various actions. We didn't come up with a one-size-fits-all. I talked about the 10 markets. The partners playing in these 10 markets had different needs as the crisis, as the pandemic evolved differently by geographic region. So I think we put to work in each of the market a very dedicated action scenario. And I think the feedback has been rather positive. In parallel, we obviously worked on supply of products, and obviously supply chains are being disrupted by the pandemic. Factories had to close down. Shipments, ocean liners, airplanes were not as readily available as they were prior to the crisis. So a lot of work has gone into optimizing demand and supply. And then I think that was at the very beginning, and it's still ongoing, to be honest with you. But then obviously we also had an opportunity to think about the opportunities that the crisis brings. And there are opportunities, there are also clear headwinds. But let's focus on the opportunities for now. For us, working from home is an exciting reality because from a personal systems point of view, from a printing point of view, getting enterprise capability into an employee's home and making them productive, it's an exciting undertaking. And I think we have a lot of partners that are embracing that as well. So we've started to put solutions into play. We've teamed up with partners to bring that to life. It's very interesting. COVID has accelerated a lot of movements that we've seen prior to COVID. A lot of business moving online, marketplaces becoming more important, business models shifting from transactional business models to outcome-based business models, subscription services being really embraced by our customers. And COVID accelerated all of this, and we had an opportunity to participate. I will call out one vertical, that is, I would call it education, or should I say learning from home now. That is a very interesting opportunity for our partners and for ourselves. And we're working on that, okay? Chasing supply and trying to help schools, universities around the globe to be ready for online schooling after the summer break.
What maybe here in the U.S. Market, I mean, what are you hearing from partners so far about how these last few months have gone? Obviously, there's been a lot of adjustment and acceleration of market trends that you were just talking about there. But what does business look like, from the partners you've been speaking with recently?
It's a mixed bag, okay, and it's probably mirrors the head and tailwinds that I could describe from an HP point of view as well. But what I'm hearing is, if you're a partner that has an online presence and a marketplace presence, you actually had a chance to participate in essential IT demand, and those partners are faring relatively well. If you are a partner that didn't have an online presence, didn't have a marketplace presence, and maybe you were even a consumer partner and you had to close down your brick and mortar shops, more difficult. And it's not necessarily only a US comment, that is a global comment. So a lot of our partners in the consumer business, they very quickly had to learn how to optimize, how to strengthen their online go-to-market and their marketplace capabilities. On the commercial side of the house, value-added resellers are doing well. If they have workflow services, security services, they can actually make the difference in how to equip an employee working from home. Look at security. Cybersecurity attacks have gone up during the COVID-19 crisis by a factor of 500. It is so much more complex to secure an employee at home than it is to secure a building, an enterprise building. So CIOs are working on that. And so it's not just that you have to secure the network, you have to secure the endpoints. We are all communicating virtually and digitally. We can all be hacked while we are in these communications. And so that is, of course, a threat, but for our VARs and for ourselves, that is an opportunity that we need to embrace and that we need to go after. We're starting to see consolidation in some of our markets, partners that are looking for M&A opportunities. And maybe I leave you with one thought that I have been reflecting a lot about. There's this birth of a segment. It's not really a birth. It's a strengthening of a segment that we had in the past. Let me call it prosumer. It's this merge of a consumer buying environment and a enterprise commercial buying environment. What I mean by that is the employees like myself that are not working from an office but working from home, we are at the same time also a consumer. And anything that we do, any IT equipment that I buy, I have this dual approach. I want to be productive at work, but ideally on the weekend, I want to use it for fun. And so companies that can blend between those two segments, partners that can blend between those two segments, are more successful than others.
The last time you were on the show with us, you were explaining the shift from 3 regions to 10 markets. And you mentioned that one of the things you folks were working on, it would be coming along later in the year, is an entirely new partner program, a replacement for Partner First. That was part of that global initiative. So that just was officially announced a couple of weeks ago as we record this. Tell folks in the audience a little bit, because there was a very particular sort of point of view on how the IT industry and the buying process in the industry has evolved in recent years that sort of motivated the thinking behind this new partner program. So maybe as a starting point, tell folks a little bit about how you feel the market and the buying process have changed and why that's important.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, because there's the underlying reason of why we launched our new partner program. We call it HP Amplify. What we've been observing prior to COVID, and now definitely it's accelerating, is that the customer journey, the purchasing journey of a customer, whether it's in a B2B environment or B2C environment, has gradually been moving very much digital. And when you go into a digital purchasing behavior or customer journey as a customer, you have an opportunity to touch your brand multiple times through different outlets. In our example with HP, you can, for example, start it on the HP webpage, but then very quickly you will probably engage with an online presence of one of our partners. You might go into social media and check what customers think about the solution that they bought from HP. And then you put all of these components together and you make a purchasing decision. So for us, the consistency in how we provide a value proposition across all of these digital outlets in order to give a customer the answer that they're looking for in a consistent way, globally consistent, has become probably the number one focus that the team and I have. And we needed to make sure that our partners that represent 87% of our revenue, that they're mirroring our efforts and that they understand why this is so important for us to be coming across as consistent. So that's what really the thinking was behind HP Amplify. We have been thinking about this program change for a year, and we finally launched it a couple of weeks ago. So I'm actually super delighted that we did that, and that we're now starting to work with our partners along the framework of HP Amplify.
So when we were first talking about the launch of the program a couple of weeks ago on the show, you know, we gave kudos to HP. You did not choose to name your tiers, you know, gold, silver, platinum. There were 2 of them instead of 3. You know, you get points for originality, but there are basically 2 levels within the program: Synergy and Power. And the distinctions between them play right into what you were just kind of talking about. So what, from your perspective, is the difference between Synergy and Power, and what is it that, you know, really characterizes those power partners?
Yeah, look, I think in order to understand how these 2 tiers basically work, is you need to understand the pillars of the program. And there are really 3 pillars. There is a performance pillar, there is a capability pillar, and there's a collaboration pillar. Performance and capability, we had that prior, okay? It's how big is your engagement with HP? What is the value that you drive for our customers? That's really what performance is all about. Capability is how do you drive it? How knowledgeable are you to represent HP, to represent our products, our solutions, also our culture, you know, what is important to us as a company. In addition to that, we thought long and hard, how do we reflect in this partner relationship now this shift to the digital online journey that our customers take? And so we decided we'll do this by adding a 3rd pillar, and we call that pillar collaboration. And collaboration is all about exchanging knowledge about how a customer comes shopping to HP, how a customer then goes shopping with the partner, maybe comes back to HP, making sure that we together have all that is required in order to understand what is the customer really after, what are the value propositions that we want to deliver, how can we make this maybe not a transactional engagement, but a really sticky, annuity-based contractual engagement, sometimes a subscription-based engagement. So these are the 3 pillars. If you then look at Synergy and at Power, they basically reflect the comfort level that a partner has on how they want to engage with us. Simplify is some level of comfort around business commitment on performance and investment into training and capabilities, but being a little bit more reserved on the collaboration piece. And then when you go to Power, well, you're all in across all the 3 pillars, and you are collaborating. There's a lot of joint business planning. We're thinking about how to map these journeys and how to define value propositions together. So it's a choice that each of our partners has. We didn't want to go for the standard bronze, silver, gold, or platinum that we had in the past. We wanted for there to be a step change. And we thought that also needs a little bit of a rebranding of the different tracks. And so that's what we ended up with.
So, you know, in the capabilities pillar there, I know one of the big objectives for the program is to really build and augment a channel that's capable of helping you know, business customers achieve business outcomes. So you're really kind of looking at particular skills, vertical industry knowledge, et cetera. I mean, for the average HP partner out there right now, how difficult is it going to be to clear that you know, capabilities bar, maybe to get from the Synergy level into Power?
Look, I mean, a lot of our partners, in particular in the US, are qualifying simply because they have pivoted themselves to outcome-based business models, and they have, from a capability point of view, but also from a portfolio point of view, made the necessary shift. How to have a services-led engagement with customers, how to lead with hardware and software, how to define workflow capabilities. So a lot of our partners have that. But the importance to me is it's not what you got already. It's more a willingness of what you want to develop too. And so we are very open, even a partner that has zero outcome-based capabilities or revenue that they generate today, very happy to sit down, have the dialogue, and map to a North Star over time and help them in becoming an outcome-based business partner. That's actually the reason why we announced the program in the summer. It will only become effective for our commercial partners globally on November 1, but we wanted to allow for 1 quarter to sit down, mostly virtually, and discuss, okay, what can we do together? What's the plan over maybe sometimes multiple years? But it's the one-on-one dialogue that we want to have with them.
Now, on the collaboration piece, so I mean, as I understand it, a lot of that comes down to pooling information that you have about your customers with information that your partners have about customers, and looking for new opportunities in those accounts together. I mean, do you anticipate getting any pushback, hearing any reservations from partners about sharing customer information with you folks? And to the extent you get that, I mean, what would you tell them?
Look, I mean, there's, I think, 2 considerations, of course. Number one, we want our customers to opt in for any type of exchange. Okay, so we're not just going to exchange data without customer consent. That is number one, and it will always be the key guiding principle. Number 2 is our partners need to trust, and we need to trust our partners as well. But I think one of the feedbacks I'm getting, Rich, to be fully transparent with you is, hey, Christoph, I'm not going to hand all of this over to you if I don't trust that you honor the business agreement, that this is an indirect go-to-market for HP. And so there is that discussion, that dialogue that needs to happen. And I completely understand if a partner decides that it's not for them, that they want to sit a little bit longer on the fence and maybe wait. That's cool. That's why we have the synergy track. But there are enough partners that are absolutely buying in to the need to collaborate and to define value propositions together. But I think that's how I would define the current status of the conversations.
So Michael, I've been monopolizing the conversation here, but I would love to get a partner's perspective on what we've been talking about here. And just if you have any questions, obviously, for Christoph about the program, fire away.
Yeah, I think that the thing that I like the best and that I really appreciate it's what Christoph just touched on. Having a long history of working with companies like HP, like Microsoft, the big players in the industry. The thing that I really appreciate is the dual tiers, where you're saying, hey, we have some partners out there that are larger, highly executing, producing a lot of volume, et cetera, and we've got a home for them. But I think a lot of times where a lot of companies kind of miss the mark is not addressing or not having an option for those partners that aren't at that level yet, but that aspire to be there and are willing to be held accountable to getting there. And so I love that they've got this second tier, as Christoph just said, where, hey, we'll get you plugged in right away, we'll get you started, we'll get you some resources, and then we'll sit down and have the discussion with you and help you to progress kind of along this path. And so I really like that, where there's an entry point for everybody, whether you are already doing a high volume of transactions and a high volume of activity with HPE, or whether it's something that you're not there yet, or maybe you just want to get started in HPE, there's still a place for you to go. So I think that's a really good aspect of the program. I like that a lot.
That's great.
So also, given the name of your company, Michael, would I assume that you are not allowed to be in the power tier, correct?
That's right. It's synergy or nothing. You're exactly right.
Have you heard similar things from other partners about the program changes and the new program, Christoph, or are you hearing other things?
Look, I've heard similar things, and I have heard other things. I mean, it's very much an individual partner discussion. No partner is the same. They play in very different customer segments. Sometimes they play in very different geographic segments. We have partners that are still very much in distribution, basic hardware distribution mode, and transactional selling mode. And I think there, the education that we want to provide is more involved. Okay, we really believe that our customers are expecting more and more outcome-based engagements. We don't think that this is a something that will ever fade away again. I think this is something that will develop more and more. It has also to do with a change in generation that takes IT purchasing decisions, IT infrastructure decisions. This is a different generation that is starting to take these calls, and we need to evolve, and our partner ecosystem needs to evolve. I do believe, I've been, when we designed the program, and Michael will know this because he sells a lot of software products. The software industry has been doing a lot of change when it comes to business models, when it comes to products, when it comes to how to manage partners. The more hardware-centric industry has been holding on to more traditional sales models. And I think we are now at a point where we need to move, and where if I look at the opportunity that we have, hardware is super important, but we need to put it into the context of workflows. We need to put it into the context of certain deliverables like security. And we need to be able to mix a hardware offering in a business model with an annuity-based offering that is a service. And so I need for my partner landscape to be able to reflect that, to be able to sell that, and to embrace it. And it's a joint effort. We will have to do this together, but this is what HP Amplify is all about.
So you touched on this a little bit earlier on. There's a transition process from where we are today to November 1st when Amplify officially goes into effect. So for the Partner First members out there in the audience right now, what can they expect, should they expect to happen? What does the timeline look like as we get from where we are right now to the launch of the new program?
So look, I think if you're a commercial partner in Partner First with HP today, then you are right smack in the middle of where the focus is right now. You should expect your partner's business manager reaching out to you, setting up that one-on-one engagement, explaining in detail what the program changes are all about, and then having a very open discussion with you, if you want that, about how you can participate. If there is a more strategic discussion, we would absolutely love that. I like the idea of defining a North Star and milestones over a period of time and how to get there. That's what you should be expecting globally. If you are a consumer partner of HP, HP Amplify will become very important to you as well. It's just not going to be by November 1. It's going to be by May 1 next year. But you will also be looking forward to having a direct engagement with HP, with your PPM along the same lines. The other thing, if you are a partner that does business with HP on a global level or international level, you should understand that this is the first program that HP really truly has global in nature. In the past, we provided HP First, for example, we provided a global framework, but we had differences, one market to another. This one is different. This one is going to be global in nature because we want to absolutely work on that consistency of value proposition. And that if we give a customer a promise together in one country, that we can also execute that same promise in other countries.
Well, very good. We are getting close to our time limit here. Although the last time you were on, Christoph, we managed to rope you into one of the little games that we play here called 5 Questions.
Remember that, yes.
So if you have a few extra minutes, I would like to see if you'd like to do 5 more questions.
Sure.
All right. So for those who are unfamiliar with how this works, Rich and I will come up, and Michael, I'll give you one too. So listen up. The game we play is called 5 Questions. We will come up with 5 questions completely off the top of our head. Could be about anything and everything. Does not necessarily have to be industry related or on topic. In fact, it's better if it's not. So to get things started, I will take the first question. We had a lot of talk about naming of program tiers and stuff like that. So if you had to name the program tiers after references from FIFA, what would the levels be called?
I have to go with First Bundesliga and Second Bundesliga, which is basically First Division, Second Division of soccer in Germany. And the only reason why this is top of mind for me is because I am unfortunately a supporter of a team that played last season in the Second Division, Stuttgart, and they made it. they will play in the first division next season, the first Bundesliga. So it's just top of mind. We're still all in celebration mode in my house.
Wow, super cool. Rich, question 2 to you.
So we've all been doing tons of Zoom meetings and Teams meetings. Have you had an embarrassing moment on either of those platforms that you wish had not happened?
Yes. Yes, I did. It always involves family members storming into the room, and I have currently 4 teenagers living in my house. So there's always something going on, and I distinctively remember one call. It was with an executive team in HP, and my daughter stormed in because she couldn't find her leggings. So we had to look after that. It was obviously a burning issue.
That's awesome. Michael, let's go to you for question number 3. Anything at all that you want to ask?
So I'd like to know, I mean, you know that partners are often running small businesses themselves. We work very hard. And in this age of COVID where we're all quarantining and not traveling and all that kind of thing, I'd like to know what your best suggestion is for a COVID-safe vacation for a partner to take this summer. What would your suggestion be?
Stay at home. Stay at home. Don't burden yourself with the thought of, did I get infected or not? Switch off your computer, okay? Enjoy your house, enjoy your family, stay safe, but stop working. I do believe, Michael, and I think this is probably true for you guys as well. I think the world has become weird in as such as every dialogue that we have needs to be scheduled now. And by doing that, the working hours that we have just gone through the roof. So I think it is more important than ever to strike the right balance. And we in HP, actually, we made a decision that the second week of August is a company-wide vacation. We want people to take vacation, we want them to take off for a week. And the best way to really take off is if the whole company takes off at the same time, because then at least the emails stop and all that stuff. So I wish that to you, and just take a break, but I would suggest stay at home.
Love it.
That's a good suggestion. I will take number 4. Let's go crazy. Let's go off the wall. How about this? If you had the choice of a clown to make you any balloon animal you could possibly imagine, what balloon animal would it be?
A shark. A shark. I'm diving. I'm a scuba diver, and I'm fascinated by these animals. I like the incredible strength, the force that they have, how agile they're moving through the water. So that would be my choice.
So, and Rich, remind me to get Christoph a copy of The Meg for Christmas later this year.
I've watched it.
All right, Rich, final question to you. So you've taken up FIFA. We keep hearing about people who they're learning to bake bread. They're learning to make various cuisine. Have you taken on any new skills, hobbies? Now that you're kind of home a lot, are you using that time to learn something new?
I'm cooking. I'm not really good at it, but it's something that I actually enjoy because I'm so bad at it that I have to be 100% in, 100% focused. That's one. The other thing is with my father living in Germany. I'm playing chess with him online. He's a very, very good chess player. I'm unfortunately not, but he enjoys winning, and I don't have a choice. He is winning, so it's okay. I hope to get better. Maybe the longer COVID goes, the better I will get. Let's see.
Yeah, the more you play, the better you get. I've
so.
Play a game or two in my time, so you pick up on it, and you kind of you go like this, and then eventually you figure it out, and you get the strategies down.
I hope that's the case. I don't see it yet. It hasn't kicked in.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you so much for playing 5 questions with us again. A lot of fun, and thank you for being on with us. For those who want to get in touch with you or learn more about HP and the program, where can they go?
Look, it's very easy. They can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on there every day. Or they can send me a message, christoph.schell@hp.com.
Fantastic. All right. And with that note, we are going to take a short break and hope that Christoph joins us again in the future at some point. So but we will take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap up the show with our regular end of the show kind of features. I got a museum pick and a tech pick for you. And Rich will put on his his little genie garb that he wears and try to predict the future and tell us what's going to happen next week. It's a lot of fun. Stick around for that. We will be right back. And welcome back to part 3 of Channel Pro Weekly. What a great interview we had there with Christoph Schell. Rich, any comments on that interview?
No, it just, the thing that continues to interest me a lot about the new HP partner program is just that it's not, typically when I'm writing about a new partner program, it's just, we changed these benefits in this way and maybe renamed that tier. This is really a big picture rethinking of where HP sits in the market, how their customers want to interact with HP and their partners. And so it's a more ambitious series of changes that they're introducing. And so I'm very interested to watch this transition process, and then, maybe a year from now to kind of look back and see how has that first year of Amplify gone.
Yeah. Michael, any comments?
Yeah, it's much less intelligent sounding than Rich's comment, but I always just appreciate what you guys do in terms of humanizing some of the executives of these. You think about HP, you think about this massive behemoth of a company, or any of the other big guys that are out there. And so for me, it's always great to have a format like this where, yeah, I want to learn about the partner program and understand his thinking and where he's going with all that. But it's also super interesting to talk about, cooking and chess and soccer and those types of things too, just because it helps to humanize it a little bit. And remember that, these are people doing business with people.
Very, very good point. And of course, it keeps it fun. And that's always what we try to work towards here on Channel Pro Weekly, is to give you something to listen to learn a lot. You get your broccoli, but we put cheese on it, so that way, I'm not saying I'm cheesy. I'm just saying we make it taste good as well. So thank you very much, Michael, for pointing that out. I really, really appreciate it. I also, the only other comment that I want to say out of that interview is that while we were talking, he mentioned that a lot of times you need to touch brands, and sometimes touch brands multiple times. And I always want to put it out there. It's always important to, if you're going to go touching brands, get the brand's consent first. Okay? Consent first. Always important.
And sanitize afterwards.
Yes. Wash your hands, 20 seconds minimum, people.
And sanitize after. Consent and sanitize. Well, that could be a whole new kind of program, Rich, that we should be doing. All right. Let's move on. So I know we did play 5 questions with Christoph Schell on. We love 5 questions here, and I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but my museum pick and tech will not take very long. So why don't we see if we can get in a quick round of 5 questions with our friend Michael Cocanower from itSynergy. Rich, first question to you.
So Michael, you are in a great Pac-12 city there. You've got 2, University of Arizona, Arizona State. I don't know the local situation, but I'm just assuming you're either a fan of one or the other. You can't be both. So do you have a side in that fight?
I would say to you, fear the fork. I am a Sun Devil. I am an alumni of Arizona State, and I wasn't aware there was another university in this state.
Well said.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Second question to me, and I asked Christoph about balloon animals. Often who makes those are clowns. What is your favorite clown of all time?
My favorite clown of all time. Like, I don't even know that I could name a clown. I mean, the thing that comes to mind would be like something horrific, like Chucky or something like that. But is that even considered a clown? I don't know.
I don't think so. I think a clown, you could say like the clown from It, maybe. That was a clown. Or
Yeah.
Bozo
okay.
the clown.
Or the Joker, maybe, I guess.
I'll give you the Joker.
From the
You want
Batman?
the Joker?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll go the Joker.
We'll go Joker. Favorite clown of all time, the Joker. Rich, question 3 to you.
So I'm still trying to wrap my brain around 117 degrees. When you go out into 117 degrees, and actually I was just another thought popped into my head, like, can you even get into your car when it's that? But how long can you reasonably stay outside in 117 degrees?
Well, so I'm a native of Arizona, so I could stay outside in 117 degrees until, tonight when it goes down to a chilly, 92 degrees or whatever else the case might be. So for me, it's not a problem. But, what I always say is, it's not unlike being on the East Coast in the winter, right? Like you walk from your heated house to your heated car, and then from your heated car to your heated office. And so you're actually only exposed to that for the 10 seconds that it takes to walk from, one doorway to another. So, whatever. You stay inside, just like in the winter on the East Coast, you stay inside in the air conditioning, you jump in the pool on the weekends, that kind of thing.
I can't even imagine that heat, because I'm from like Illinois, northern Illinois, almost Wisconsin. So 92 degrees is basically the third level of hell to us here. So 117, I don't know what that would be like. That just sounds...
Well, and remember, 117 is not as high as we've been. So I mean, we can do better.
Oh my gosh, just crazy. Oh, I don't even want to think about it. All right, question number 4. Being in martial arts and competitive martial arts, I'm sure you have broken a bone or two on other people. Is that true?
I have never broken somebody else's bones.
Ah, that's too bad. Well, that makes it that makes that question moot then. Have you ever had one of your bones broken?
I have had one of my bones broken. I broke my neck, as a matter of fact. And
no way. Really?
Yeah, it was actually ended up being a near-death experience. This was a number of years ago. And the doctor told me that if it was a millimeter lower, I would have been permanently paralyzed from the neck down. And if it was an inch higher, I would have died immediately on the scene.
Now, can I ask what caused that injury?
It was stupid. It was at a company event. We decided to go to a trampoline park, and I decided that it would be a good idea, even though I've never, I'm no experienced trampolinist, if that's even a thing, a trampolinist, but I decided it would be a good idea to do a backflip, and I didn't make it all the way over. And fun fact, there is actually video of it, which I have watched once and will not watch again, but occasionally I share that with people.
Oh, wow. Trampolines, every bad story starts with a trampoline.
Yes, I agree. Ask anybody who works in an emergency room, and they've all got trampoline stories.
Yeah. I hurt myself on one of those once, and it's scary because my daughter does competitive cheer, and so tumbling is a part of that. So like they go to these tumbling places, and I got to close my eyes every time they're on these things doing that stuff. It's just so freaky. So cool story. Rich, question number 5 to you.
Well, I'm tempted to ask how long it takes to recover from a broken neck, but I'm sort of fixated on the temperature thing. So it suddenly occurs to me, when do you go running when it's 117 out during the day?
Yeah, so probably the most difficult part is I generally do my long runs on the weekend. So right now my long runs are generally somewhere between 15 and 20 miles. And so I normally try to be out actually starting the run by about 4:15 in the morning on Sunday mornings, and hopefully finish by 7 o'clock. So that way, it doesn't get past the low 90s.
The low 90s. Now, does that is this before the sun becomes kind of unbearable too?
Yeah. And that is definitely, you were asking earlier about going outside. That is definitely the most challenging part about the heat is the running. It's not easy.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting stuff. Well, that is 5 questions with Michael Cocanower by itSynergy. Thank you so much for playing. I hope we get you back on to guest host again so we can ask you more crazy questions, because you are a fascinating man. I got to tell you, I got all kinds of stuff that I want to learn about you, and I got to track down that video. I want to see the awful.
I will show it to you sometime. I will not watch it though. You can see it, but I won't watch it.
I will have to ask my wife if there is a video of me doing something similar. I didn't hurt myself as bad as you, but there might be video of me taking a nice tumble on a trampoline. We'll have to find that as well. All right, so we're going to go into our museum pick and tech pick. So, Michael, if this is your first time on, as you don't probably know, I have a very wide variety of old things that I have collected. I'm kind of putting those quotes up there through the years. Basically, I just can't throw away anything that has buttons, a screen, or is electronic of any kind. But so long as my wife doesn't actually follow through on her threat to leave me if I collect too much stuff, then I will continue to do so and share it with all of you. So I have a fun kind of museum pick, Rich, and I like that we talked about things like Windows XP today, because it kind of feeds right into that. So what my museum pick is kind of a funny one. I'm gonna hold it up for those who are watching on YouTube. Hold up to the camera, and I'll describe it to you. Basically, for those who are watching it, who are listening, what I am holding up is a USB to PS2 adapter, especially common and useful back in the days of, say, Windows 95, Windows 2000, and the early days of Windows XP. There was it was kind of the start of all of these USB-based peripherals, right? They kind of started in the Windows 95 era, kind of took off a little more in the Windows 98 era, but all throughout those time periods, most of motherboards didn't have USB ports. I mean, I had enough, or you wanted to use a newer keyboard on a computer that didn't have it. So you would need something like this in order to make that work. Michael, do you have any of these laying around still?
I bet I could go find some. I bet we've got some around here somewhere.
Yeah, and they're still, and stuff like, I mean, this, I call this the museum pick because most motherboards these days do not have a PS2 port. Although you can still find some that do. They'll usually have one combined port you can use with either a keyboard or a mouse. But there's still a lot of useful peripherals that might sport a PS2 connector that we're going to talk about in a second. But yeah, these you don't have a lot of use for these days. But that leaves me my tech pick, and I just kind of alluded to it, and I'll talk about it. And there's various kinds of this, but there's also the reverse of that. Like I just mentioned, there are still lots of useful PS2 accessories you might have laying around, particularly in keyboards. There's still great keyboards that are old, right? And you might have a bunch of keyboards that work, and you can make them work on computers without a PS2 port if you use one of these. So what I'm holding up here is like kind of the reverse of what this is. This is USB to PS2, so you can use a newer peripheral on a very old machine. This is PS2 to USB, so you can plug a keyboard and mouse. I don't really use it much for the mouse anymore, but these can particularly be useful with keyboards. And then you can plug it into the USB port of any common laptop. And I bring this up only because I had to actually use this the other day, and it was useful that I had one laying around. My daughter was playing Minecraft, and for some reason the keyboard on her notebook stopped working. So something that we have to deal with. And I've got lots of keyboards, and I just ran into my office. I grabbed a keyboard that I could find that wasn't in use, but it was a PS2 keyboard. It was a little older, but I just grabbed my little adapter, plugged it right into the laptop, and poof, there it was. Working old keyboard on new machine. You ever had to use one of these, Michael?
No, but I'm just thinking maybe someday if I get bored, I'll use both of them together and to plug a USB keyboard into a USB port.
Now, if you do that, that's called crossing the streams, and all life on Earth will cease to exist.
Wow. Okay, that makes it even more tempting to try.
So yeah, that is interesting. I wonder if it would work. Why wouldn't it work? I suppose it would work.
Why wouldn't
right?
it? Yeah.
Yeah. Why would it? Just making it extra complicated for no reason. I love it. Rich, have you ever used one of these? Got any old keyboards laying around?
No, actually. I mean, I've got connectors in the closet back there. I don't think I've got one of those though. Yeah,
there's similar ones too. There's also, I have one of those. Hey Michael, you've been around long enough, you probably remember those. You remember those really great IBM mechanical keyboards?
Sure.
From back in the day?
Sure.
With the right adapters, you can still adapt those. If you have an AT5 one, if you have an AT5 adapter, you can adapt that to PS2 and into this, and I can attest it works.
Wow.
So, and that's a good keyboard even to this day. So sometimes there's a reason to want to drag those old peripherals out and plug them into something new. All right, well, that is my museum pick and tech pick. Rich, why don't you tell us what Mr. Gaskin has in store for us, and in case you missed it. And we promised the audience you're going to put on like a little genie outfit and get out your crystal ball. So do that, change into that while you go.
Yeah. Let me look around for that virtual backdrop. But while I'm doing that, I'll point out that the Mr. Gaskin you're referring to is James Gaskin, who every Friday on ChannelProNetwork.com posts his "In Case You Missed It" story, in which he rounds up news from the week that was. This week it's frankly kind of a slow news week, but he does have some details for you about a fraud detection system from Amazon Web Services. They've also rolled out or added the ability to translate Office documents, Microsoft Office documents, into other languages or from other languages automatically. Microsoft added some features to Windows Virtual Desktop. And did you know, it's a little hard to believe this is true, but it is true, that there is a version of the Crocs sandal out there that looks like and smells like a bucket of KFC chicken. All I can tell you is this fabulous product sold out completely in the first half hour it was on the market. And now if you want one, you're going to have to pay $500 on eBay. James is going to have all the details for you. Now, looking ahead to next week, it actually turns out to be kind of a busy week because not only are we doing our cybersecurity online summit, but CompTIA is doing its annual ChannelCon event. That's going to be online, and the IT Nation Evolve peer groups are going to be doing their Q3 meetings. That's what you, Michael, mentioned before. You're going to be attending online. And then Black Hat, the security conference, is going to be happening online next week as well. And you know what? I've always been a little, I've never been to Black Hat. I'm a little afraid to go, because I sort of figure I've just got a bullseye on my back the second I walk through the door, and everybody just says, no problem, just don't bring any devices, bring a pen and a legal pad, and nobody can hack you. Can you imagine attending Black Hat online, like on your home PC? Scary.
That is very scary. Michael, do you ever go to Black Hat or any of those?
I'm a DEF CON attendee every year, and very sad that it's not happening in person this year. I look forward to that every year.
So do you see lots of hackery and shenanigans if they do that online?
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%.
Awesome. And we need more things that smell like KFC, Rich. we need to work on that. All right. Well, that is going to wrap up episode 155. I want to point out to the audience, Rich mentioned that we are doing our cybersecurity summit next week. Go to events.channelpronetwork.com and register for that. Now, I know most of our LinkedIn listeners will know that when we do an event, usually even an online event for the ChannelPro Forum, we will generally skip that week of ChannelPro Weekly. That is not true next week. We are doing a show next week, so we will be back. However, I don't believe we will be doing the show after that, the week after that, because I will be on vacation, and I believe, Rich, you're going to be on vacation as well.
That's correct. We're both off that week.
So we're taking a breather that week, but we will be back next week. Because of that, we didn't want to miss 2 weeks in a row for you, our wonderful audience who we love so dearly. And why do we love you? We love you because, well, you tune in each and every week. And in order to do that, you go to Google Play Podcasts, you go to Apple Podcasts, you go to Stitcher, you go to Spotify, go to YouTube. You can subscribe there if you like to watch. Go to any of those services where podcasts are aggregated and subscribe, and then you can join us each and every week as we talk about the news, the stories, and give you great insight and great interviews as well. I want to give a big thank you to our guest host today, Michael Cocanower, the founder and president of itSynergy. Michael, for those who want to learn about a little bit more about you, contact you, or learn more about itSynergy, where can they go?
Yeah, everything's on itSynergy.com.
So itSynergy.com, we'll add that link to the show notes page as well, so that way you have that handy. But go there and check that out, please. And hopefully, Michael, we get you back on a future show someday.
I'd very much look forward to that.
Excellent. Well, ChannelProNetwork.com is the website. Please point your web browser to that particular URL each and every morning. Make it your homepage. There you get news, articles, resources, downloads, white papers, podcasts, all kinds of great stuff to help you with your business, help you grow your business, and stay on top of trends in the industry. We are ChannelPro Network on Facebook, ChannelPro Network on LinkedIn, at ChannelPro SMB on Twitter. Rich, what are you on the Twitters?
At Rich Free.
And I am at Matt Whitlock on Twitter. Michael, are you on Twitter?
At itSynergy_USA.
That's where you got to go. Follow us all, folks. It's a boatload of fun. And of course, tune in each and every week for more episodes of ChannelPro Weekly. If you want to send us an email, podcast@ChannelPro Network is the email address. Send in your thoughts, suggestions, comments, whatever it is. Rich will say anything on the podcast if you just tell him to. So send in your requests, and he'll say it. I promise you, he will. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Extra special thanks to Christoph Schell from HP for joining us for an interview as well. And we will see you all in episode 156 next week.